are moving into a fabulous panel that I'm so excited about. Tech and startups, social quality and profit. And I have just learned that Startup Omaha is actually streaming this event live. They're watching over there. So if everybody could turn around and wave to Startup Omaha, who's going to be checking out our panel. All right, very well done. All right, so I want to start, and the first panelist I want to introduce to come on down is Kent Lewis, and Kent is a really, really busy guy. He is the president of Anvil Media, which is a digital marketing agency, as well as Formic Media, which is a digital marketing and website development company specializing in a small business. He is also an SEM Professional Trade Association co-founder and the co-founder of a networking group called Mindshare PDX. And he's won like every award and accolade that you can think of, and the co-host of Dad's Unplugged. So, Ken, thank you very much for joining us. A big round of applause. I feel like this is very much like the sort of the Miss Universe pageant where they're all coming down as I'm introducing them. So strut it out here, folks. Next up, I'm very privileged to introduce Victor Sarin. And Victor is the accessibility manager and founder of the accessibility team at Yahoo. He was born in the Ukraine, and he was instrumental in developing the Accessibility Lab at Yahoo to help developers as well as key decision makers work on accessibility and user experiences. He is also a jazz musician, a composer, and he uses the computer to write his music. And his latest release is called Vanilla Fields. So welcome, Victor. Now, before I introduce the next panelist, I thought maybe I'm going to get to know you two a little bit better. So yeah, we'll let you use the mic there. Random question. Kent, I went to a really great place last night called Voodoo Donuts. So I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite flavored donut?
It's definitely the glazed old-fashioned.
Glazed, okay, so you're like an old school, just kind of standard.
I'm old school. I drink old-fashioned, eat old-fashioned.
I love it.
So.
All right, that's good. Yeah, we can definitely appreciate that. Yeah. Would you mind passing the microphone over to Victor? And I'm going to actually ask you a different question, Victor.
No donuts.
No donuts. No donuts for Victor. You're a jazz musician, so who's your all-time favorite jazz artist?
Pat Messini.
Ah, very nice. Very nice. Fantastic.
My life is like, I'd like my life to be like his music. I mean, it's so creative and so beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, love that. Wouldn't we all? All right, let me go ahead and introduce our next panelist. We have a gentleman by the name of Justin Yuen, who actually has the best company name. It's called F My I, and it doesn't stand for what you think. It is For My Innovation, which is a collaboration software company focused on sustainability. And prior to that, he was with a small little local company here called Nike, managing corporate sustainable development. And he started FMI. I just like saying that. I'm just going to say that over and over again. Due to his passion for sustainability and interest in how technology advances can help lessen the impact on the planet while positively affecting society, and how social media spurs innovation. So Justin, welcome. And for you, I'd like to know, what's your favorite sports team?
At this point in the season, I'm a little embarrassed to admit it, but it's the New York Mets. I'm a New Jersey native.
Not a good timing for that question. We obviously did not pre-plan that, but
Blazers, Timbers.
But you know what? It's good because you're not a fair weather fan. You're willing to stand by your team no matter what.
Clearly, after all these years.
Yes, very, very well. I'm a Bears fan, so I can empathize with you. So
thank you.
Well, welcome, Justin. And finally, we have a woman who is fashioned after my own heart, a woman in finance, Angela Jackson, who is the co-founder of Portland Seed Fund, which is an innovative investment fund management firm specializing in seeding growth and innovation here in Portland. And they've got a really innovative, proprietary, milestone-based system of both capital and coaching. She has been involved in seed funding and venture investments for dozens of companies and been on both sides of business development and served as chair of OEN's Angel Oregon. So welcome, Angela.
Thank you.
All right, and I want to know from you, what is your favorite book of all time?
I still really love Catcher in the Rye.
Ah, I think there are a lot. How many people here, Catcher in the Rye is their favorite book? A lot of people. All right, well, Angela, welcome. And I would like to call back up Terry and Liz, who are going to be asking the questions for this panel. And before I head off here, I think I'm not going to let them off the hook either. We want to get to know you better, Terry and Liz. So I'm going to ask you each a question. Terry,
oh gosh,
you have the microphone. And
yes.
Since we know you like to sing, what's your favorite karaoke song?
It'll have to be the one I proposed to my wife with.
Which is?
It was Elvis Presley's "Are You Lonesome Tonight?"
Oh, that's so cute.
I did the whole Elvis part, and I wonder if you're lonesome tonight. And I turned the spoken part into a marriage proposal.
That's
my favorite karaoke
very
song.
good story, Terry. And we'll hear. Maybe we'll have you do that a little later to wrap up.
Well, Anita will be here later. We can recreate it if you want.
And Liz, I'll pass you the microphone. I'll come down here. Let's find out, if you were a superhero, what would your superpower be?
Well, how do I compete with that? I have a usual answer to that question, but based on yesterday, I get people laid.
We're scoring. For those of you, that's how we ended yesterday. It was very good. Okay, now that three of our panelists, they're like, what is that about? See what you walked into today? First of all,
Yeah, I was just repeating the story. I didn't start it.
I'm going to beef them out here, I think. First of all, thank you all. And you're all innovators and working in startups, and we've been talking for the last day and a half now. It's kind of like, and the question is kind of like, can we have our cake and eat it too when it comes to, trying to create something from the beginning, like many of you have, and still have that sense of purpose, and like in the case of Justin, where he's literally saying we want to create sustainable software. How is that really? Is that totally incompatible or doable, especially from your standpoint? And Justin, I'd like to start with you simply because we had that conversation last.
Yeah, usually when people ask me about sustainable software, it's like what is that all about? And I didn't really have any answers when I had started out as well. My background at Nike, I worked in sustainability. What does it mean for the business, folks not in corporate responsibility? What does it mean to the average employee? What's the business case? And so out of that, I really saw a big need for an importance of collaboration to solve a lot of these problems. And so the way that I ended up defining what does it mean to have a sustainable software company or internet firm came down to three things. So one is the operations of how you do business day to day. So this could be any workplace. How do employees get to work? Where is your energy being purchased? The efficiency of your operations. That's consistent from any workplace that you can think of. Number two, we realized, as a media company, internet firm, our bigger impact would be our clients or the people using our software. That would have a greater impact. So that became features embedded into the platform. So our platform is a social collaboration solution. So we added a commuting tracker in there. There's a little thing that you get renewable energy offsets as you're using the service. It's supposed to minimize printing and shipping, those kind of things. So that became the second definition. How can you embed sustainable attributes into the actual product? And then the third element was, we talk about triple bottom line, people, planet, profit, but obviously profit is a major driver for what we do. And so how can we apply sustainability to business development and growth? So that became templates for collaboration sites for green teams. So Hyatt is using it for their green team efforts. Also, because of some of my own personal involvement with nonprofits in community environment, a lot of their efforts need people pitching in, working together. So it became, how can we help those organizations with their own collaboration sites? So how does that use case, so to speak, feed our growth? So that became the definition over time.
Thanks. And Angela, you're like overseeing how many different companies right now in the seed fund?
We just made 8 investments,
8.
8 seed investments across sectors. So it's sector agnostic. They have to be capital efficient, though, and have high growth potential.
And so, how do you see these companies sort of? Are they first of all, are they showing some purpose in the sense that they're trying to do good as well as produce their product and make profit, or is that hard for them to do, or what are you saying?
Well, okay. Let me go into a little bit about my background, very short, to explain why I am where I am today. My master's degree is actually in environmental studies, and a lot of my early work has been teasing out the connections between profit and nonprofit in terms of producing value, which can or cannot be capitalist based. One thing I've learned in that process is you can't do everything at once, and so I'm just like some of the early social purpose investments had poor social return or financial return or confusing returns. In other words, you could achieve an environmental gain, but the worst, employee treatment record, in the books. Now, at one time, Clorox had that the great on the human side, terrible on the environment side. Now, that was a long, long time ago, but my point is, if you pursue those strategies, you try to be everything to everybody, sometimes you end up being nothing. So I have been very specific in recently, focusing on profit, which, by the way, creates extraordinary economic growth, which is different than pursuing economic growth, like economic development in and of itself. So I kind of do it through the angel investing door. We don't try to seek out companies that are trying to do good, but they do, by the way, do good by creating pretty much instant economic development. And there's a lot of value in creating the dignity to have a living wage job, and I believe in that.
And Kent, you've approached this a little bit differently. You've as an entrepreneur, you've got various businesses, your main business, but yet you spend a lot of time working with Mindshare PDX, which I think is a do-good thing from the standpoint of trying to find a network and help people find work. I mean, how are you balancing all that out?
Well, I think it's interesting for me because the main reason I hired employees after working with Ryan at Email ROI, eROI, was that I realized where I wanted to spend my time was in meetings and building nonprofits and other social commitments. And I needed somehow to pay the bills. So I was like, well, I'll just hire people and train. They'll do that stuff, and then I'll do the other stuff that I really like. So 11 years ago when I started PDX Mindshare, it was I just knew 10 or 12 people. I wanted them to meet each other. And I said, well, we'll just go meet at Kel's. And they're like, when's the next one? Because it was a good meeting. And I was like, well, let's just make it every third Wednesday. And it's moved around. It's now at Brick's Tavern in the Pearl. But the idea there was, a place that you could always go. You knew same time, same place. And you could always have that sliding coffee end at Mindshare. And then knowing that I'm more of like a little bit of a social glue to make sure that people hate networking. It's up there with snakes and public speaking. And so the idea is to break down that barrier. We had a hypnotherapist come in and talk about how to overcome barriers like sitting in a room with strangers and trying to meet them. But really, the other thing I've done with my agencies and even with SEMPDX, which is a nonprofit trade organization, is I built into the articles of incorporation in all 3 of my entities that we always give back in form of, so we don't have software and we don't print hardly anything, and we have a reasonably sustainable building and environment, but what we do is we have our time. We're in the time business as agencies, so we give our service. So every year we have a nonprofit that we treat them like a regular client, not like the stepchild client that most agencies tend to fall in the habit of, we don't have anything else to do, let's take care of that client. But we treat them, we put them on the books like any other client. And I took it a step further with SEMPDX. Once a year we have a client we volunteer for, and at the end of the year we give 10% of our profits, which is never a big check, but it helps.
Oh, yeah.
And then after not being able to make it on 100 Best Places to Work last round, I was so pissed off that I increased our benefits, and then I added because I researched why we didn't, because I knew I created an amazing place to work, but that wasn't good enough. I was like, okay, let's get back more. So I added a quarterly cash donation to a charity where the team decides, and now we're going to make it a social voting. So charities that can get onto our list, and then it has a gaming mechanics, and then we'll just give away that.
That is purposeful. You want
And
to be in the
it's-
top 100 places to work, and that's not a bad place to be.
What's another interesting thing about having nonprofits is we probably serviced in the last 6 years maybe 30 nonprofits that we've just done in kind pro bono.
Wow.
And that led to the Nature Conservancy putting out an RFP, and they
Right.
saw the work that we'd already done.
Wow.
And so they're actually a reasonably sized paying client, out of DC, and it's really nice because we love that. And so, yeah, we don't take on crappy clients. That's the other reason I started my own business, was beyond getting fired a few times, was that I really wanted to select the clients. So I'm not going to work with, probably not with Kraft, probably not with Philip Morris, probably not with BP. Oh, well, I just lost those clients. It's terrible. But I chose the clients. There were clients that I couldn't take when I was at other agencies, like a yoga institute. They're like, it's too creepy, too cultish. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So that was at a previous job. So I realized it's great. You get to choose the companies that do good and do good for them. But I agree. Profit is the driver that allows us these opportunities, but it can be that triple bottom line.
Great. Victor, turn to you. Now, you're in a bigger organization, obviously, with Yahoo.
Yep.
And so what's your take from where you're sitting from the Yahoo perspective and your sort of advice to smaller startups as to how they sort of balance this out between profit and purpose?
You're not Kara Swisher, right?
Hmm?
You're not Kara Swisher? She's like a Bay Area.
Oh,
Okay,
right,
sorry.
right.
It was supposed to be a joke. Okay, sorry, forget it. So, I mean, the biggest... I'm not in a good position to give advice. I can just share with you some of my thoughts. I guess that's a better way to put it. Where do I start? Question for you guys. What is the first thing you do when you get into the hotel room?
Sit down my suitcase.
Check under the bed.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, what I usually do is the first thing when I get into the hotel room, I start feeling everything around, just getting like to know the shape of the room, the material that the walls are made of, like what is the shape of the toilet, things like that. People think I'm crazy, but I think it's part of sort of who I am, which is I'm very curious by nature. And so anything I do in life, whether it's building the accessibility lab or working inside a big company, I start out with this sort of approach, which is be curious about everything around you and create alliances, and somehow things fall into place. Liz earlier today said that why do we have to do everything alone? I don't think we ever have to ask this question, because we cannot do anything alone unless you live like on a deserted island or something like that. Anything we do, any kind of success that I ever had in my life, it mostly thanks to other people who created circumstances around me to enable me to do that stuff. So, but I think, again, the biggest things for me are curiosity and alliances. You get good people around you, and if you're curious to explore, things are going to happen. Specifically in the area like accessibility, the big challenges that I have to face on an everyday basis is that this industry is so stigmatized, and we need to bring more innovation, more fresh thinking. How do I say it? Not to piss off too many people, but like, I'm not too big into guidelines. I just don't care, I do care, I do care about user experience. I do care about what people get out of what we create. That's really what drives me. That's what drives me wild and makes me excited about technology. But what drives me nuts is the fact, that people like, want to standardize things, and we need a bit of that. Of course, we need some foundation that you can start from. But at the end of the day, we gotta push the accessibility forward, because technology doesn't wait. And as Glenda pointed out yesterday, technology is so important if you have a disability. I was talking to Ryan today at our table, and I said, I could take your cell phone from you tomorrow, you'd be all right. He said, no, I won't. But I said, you will be, don't worry. You'd figure out, right? If you take some of my gadgets from me, I probably have to ask for assistance, and I like talking to people, but not asking for assistance. Actually, I like when people ask me for assistance. That feels much better. And so technology enables me to provide that sort of assistance to other people, right? So I want to be the one sort of driving the car. Okay? Cool, thank you.
Now Liz is going to quiz you, so be prepared.
Okay, so hi there. By the way, awesome response. It would have been my response. Don't put up with me, Keith. Just don't. awesome responses from all of you on Terry's question, like he asked such big questions. I never answer them at all. Well, sometimes I do, but then he likes it better when I don't. So I want to bring the thing more into the room with an awareness of the people in the room. So how many people in here work for a big company or what they consider to be a big company? 1, 2, 3, 4. How many people work for a medium-sized company? Whatever you consider to be medium-sized company, we're like not into rules. We want the hotel room to have a toilet, but we don't care what shape it is.
Yes, we do. Oh, yes, we do.
Some of us do and some of us don't.
Just try it. Just try it.
That's our news. I'm not going there. Okay, so how many people work for like a company of under 10 employees? Okay, so let's say how many people work for a company of over 10 employees? And now of those people of under 10 employees, how many of those under 10 employees are under 2 employees? Okay, so a little context to the room. So basically, how would you describe the room? So, I'm really interested in, and I'm really curious about this, because I think that you all have different experiences, but maybe not. When I meet the people in this room and similar people across the internet and talk to them, I find a great number of them, whether they're 24 or 54, are in some way stuck. And it often has to do with they're either too profit, and so it's like the kumbayars or the bean counters. So, and you can't have profit without purpose. I mean, like if you aren't serving somebody, then you don't have a reason to be. And if you aren't, making a profit, you can't serve somebody. So you got to have the bean counters and a little bit of the kumbayars, or you're going to fall off the balance sheet. So when you find somebody who's too skewed and too stuck in one direction, which side are they usually on, and what do you usually tell them? And I'm going to give it to you first, if you don't mind, Keith, because you probably relate to the question more and let everyone think. Well, I was going to
I'll use this one. So most of this is because of PDX Mindshare. I see, minimally 40 people a month at these events, roughly, and we have our workshops before the networking event, which is next Wednesday, 4:30 for the workshop, 5:30 for the networking. But what I normally see is, I think the saddest stories I see for Portland are the Intel, Tektronix, the large employers that have people that have for 20 years done a job that maybe 10 to 50 people in the US do, and that job is gone, and there is nothing, not only in Portland, possibly on the Western Seaboard, where they can go apply that. They can't afford to move because their house is worth less. I just met with a guy for lunch yesterday that built his house in Bend in 2000, started in 99, built in 2000. Last week was appraised for 10% less than it cost him to build it. And that's over, 11 years. And he's trying to move back here. So anyway, I think that the challenge is, as a networking guy, that people don't realize that whether you're kumbaya or you're a bean counter, if you don't build a network, you have no net. So not only do you not have a net when you fall, but your net actually, it's more like a tide. It rises with you. So a lot of people only see at Mindshare once a year or every 5 years when they lose their job, and they come in and say, not even help me, please help me. It's, what are you going to do for me? Isn't that your job? And it's a little frustrating that the expectation is that I'm magically going to pull a job out of my ass for them. But what I can do is get them hopefully excited about I'd have an even larger ass if that was the case. Is to get them excited about the idea of meeting people and seeing what that can do for their network. It's that whole pay it forward is my methodology of networking. It's like the idea of learning the lay of the land first is to learn I start with what's your story, and then from there I can figure out how to weave them into my story and introduce them to people that will forward their story. So I guess I would say is it's usually very few bean counters at Mindshare because they're deathly afraid of networking, and a lot more kumbayars that don't have enough focus on how to sell themselves and how they're going to help make somebody else a profit and pay for themselves. So the worst thing that I hear is, I'm a generalist, I can do anything. And the challenge with that is, of course, is every company needs a generalist, but they don't want to ever hire a generalist. So they hire a specialist. So I try to figure out what your specialization. So I also don't believe, and I haven't written an article about this yet, but I don't believe in the generic resume. I think every time you send a resume out, it should be customized for that employer.
Every time you propose, it should be customized.
Yeah, I mean, even lightly, but because the cover letter doesn't always stick with the resume, so it needs to be in there. And the other part I preach as a marketer and a social media guy is that your social metrics help you get that job. So when we were hiring a sales position a year or two ago at Formic, we had one kid that they were exact parity, but one had 500 connections, the other was like, I'm getting on LinkedIn tomorrow, guess who we hired? It didn't work out, but at least he had there were other issues for that, but all things being equal, they probably both wouldn't have worked out. Right. Yeah. So, but the idea is that you have your number of LinkedIn connections, you have your number of Twitter follows, all those little metrics in the corner of your resume somewhere. I don't know anybody that's doing that, but that's what I've recommended. So that whether you're a bean counter, that network is of value, or if you're kumbaya, that I know that when I hire you, that I get access to that network, and you're extending my brand because your tagline in LinkedIn is, so and so at Anvil Media.
Great perspective.
Okay, before I turn this over to Justin, I'm going to do you last, Victor. No, go ahead. I just want to point out two things. One is, and I'm so with you on what you said. One is that Dean said it yesterday. Be one thing. One thing is a whole lot easier to share. If you're one thing, like he's Mindshare, then when I run into someone who's an entrepreneur and belongs at Mindshare, the first person who comes to my mind is him, Keith. But if Ken, God, Valerie. But if I'm seven things, if you're seven things, you're not stuck in my brain. And if you're one thing, think about it. If I say talk show host, there's one name that comes to your head, but that person does many things. And that's critically important, and he brought it up yesterday, and it's way easier to share in 140 characters on Twitter, too. So, bean counter, kumbaya, how do you help them out? You must have friends, I know, Justin.
A few, but I think to me the key to success is really a balance, and a lot of my friends and colleagues get tired of me saying that, but I mean, truly, from my experience running a bootstrap, startup is, you have to have equal parts passion about solving a particular issue. It doesn't have to be environmentally, socially specific. It could be helping someone sell more or be more effective. But you also need to be able to both execute and find profits or build that business model. Entrepreneurs hopefully can embody bits of both, but as you're forming a team or looking for a position, both skills are necessary. You can position yourself in both ways. And to me, I also take it back to design and innovation. To me, everyone is a designer, everyone's an innovator, and what I mean by that is a designer fundamentally looks at a challenge and comes up with a solution. Innovators are constantly trying to also improve to achieve that goal. And so whether you're an entrepreneur, an intrapreneur, looking for a position, positioning yourself as being able to solve a concrete problem that either the job, the employer, or the customer is facing, and being able to add value in that, I think is vitally important in that journey.
That's awesome. You connected me to something that somebody wrote on Twitter. I got this really awesome tweet. The best advice Liz Strauss ever gave me was, you need to tell people why they should care, and
Does everyone remember that brand U Fast Company cover from, I think it was probably the late '90s? And I think that's still very important in this day and age. No matter, again, if you're looking for a job, starting a business, position yourself, like Kent was saying, as a pitch customized to the needs of your audience. But of course, having a passion for solving a problem, you also need to figure out the sustainable business model in all senses of the word there, and execute on those ideas.
Jessica, I want to just tailor the question a little bit to you and just refocus it back to, bean counter or kumbaya, because we suspect we know which one you are.
So here's what Angela has to say on the topic.
Wait, but I want to take it just a little bit further. Bean counters, I called you Jessica, didn't I? I'm like brain glitch today. Okay, so Larry, could you just straighten me out when I get the names wrong?
Thanks, Kim.
Okay.
Talk to you, Kim. We're all changing names today.
Yes. So what I'm kind of wondering is, one of the things I really like about what you said about what you do is that it so reflects who you are. And it's like what Matt said yesterday, and so I'm going to say it because you weren't here. I'm going to get it backwards. Don't do, and don't.
You do what you are.
And be, do what you are. Don't be what you do. And so you really are inside what you do. So I'm not saying you are just a bean counter. So how do you help people get unstuck when they're too far one way or the other?
Well, I don't find the labels helpful, and I'm out all the time connecting with people. Unlike your comment, I can't not do it. In fact, we just got back from vacation, and what does the entrepreneur talent scout do on vacation? Loves to fish. Ooh, what's the potential beneath what everyone else can see? Play the ponies, right? A little bit of risk for a little bit of reward. Always an entrepreneur. Out talking to the entrepreneurs running the shops in the town that we were staying. I can't turn it off. It's a way of being in the world. And I don't find the labels helpful. And the reason is thus. I am in a unique position in that my personality is, I'm a generalist. I'm a liberal arts major who can do a lot of different things, and I'm proud of that. I like that. And the only thing we really know today is that the rate of change is changing. That's the only thing anyone in this room or anywhere else really knows. So who do I want to ride that horse? I want people who can change quickly. I want them to anticipate change and delight in anticipating change. I don't want them to fight change. So then I know I'm going to need people that have a variety of perspectives and skills, because they never know that what was useful today is completely useless tomorrow. They have to not only be comfortable with that, but get a little giddy about it. I get to learn something new. I get to try on a new name. I mean, this, I think, is the world we live in, and maybe I'm wrong, and I'm okay with that. But this is who I am in the world. And as somebody who gets to go with, I spend a lot of time with angel investors who, if you were to look at them and how they dress and generationally and where they come out of, you would assume bean counter and a certain set of political values and such and such. Well, if you strip away those labels, I've had, the delight on a daily basis to discover some of the biggest kumbaya guys I know. It's kind of like, the harder they are on the outside, the squishier they are on the inside. And there's some lovely people and some lovely instincts to make good in the world from people from all corners. And I get to get up every day and tease those out. And that makes me happy.
Outstanding. Outstanding. So, Mike, Victor.
Yes, Kim, what's going on?
Kim, I guess I get to be Kim twice. So, what's your take on this whole question? And I don't believe in the labels either, by the way. Yeah, so.
I mean, those are pretty creative labels, so I'm not a believer in labels, but I like bean counter. It's pretty cool, bean counter. So. That's great. Thank you. You know, I don't want to be too philosophical about it, but I think in a large organization, you know, organization is a machine essentially. So you gotta have both. You can't, you know, everyone can't be creative. Well, they can be creative in their own way, I guess is the better way to put it. You know, there are people who do great, you know, C++ programming. You know, well, try to ask them to do management, they're gonna throw at you, and maybe you know. So, and there are people who just love playing with numbers. You give them spreadsheets, and they're gonna be like all over it. Ask them to do C++, forget it. So I kind of see you need both. You need both. The only thing that I don't like is when people are not genuine, which means they do the job for the sake of doing it, you know, without sort of reflecting. So what exactly am I doing? Do I like what I'm doing or not? So that, I guess that would be like the brief answer is, without, again, I don't want to create any philosophical theories, but you need both. Bean counters, you need kumbaya folks. But obviously, it's very much correlated with the risks you're willing to take, right? I mean, if you've got a family, you know, people are less willing to risk their job because they've got an awesome idea that can, you know, cause them to lose that job, right? So they'll say, yeah, I'm just going to sit down and just program something and make my manager happy, and life goes on. And there's going to be someone who is willing to risk their position because they think the company is not going the right direction. They're going to speak up and most likely lose their job, which could be a good thing too. So correlation between the risks, and I think your creativity is important.
Awesome.
Okay, we'd like to open it up to questions from the audience. You want to ask a question of the panel? Anybody? Before we, yes, John.
I guess I'd challenge the label thing, and this part of this comes down to.
Well, I wasn't. I was only using the label to identify the two kinds of thinking that people are sometimes skewed one way or the other.
No, I like the label. I mean, I'm saying I like labels, and this comes down to both. My son experiences Asperger's, and so when we announced that to the world, we had many people that said, "Well, you're labeling him." Well, I can't find him help, and I can't find networks, and I can't find people to build around me a community without labels. I'm a connector, and so I'm labeling, and I don't mind people labeling me as long as it's correct. So I guess does that make sense? I'm not.
Yeah.
Do you want to answer that?
No, I think that's great. I think it's important for people to come to what they do with what they believe, because that's how they enter the world with conviction. I don't care if you agree with me or not on that, but that's how I enter the world with conviction, is to discover things between the edges. That's my gift. That's what I do on a daily basis. So for me, the labels aren't helpful because it would hurt how I do my being in the world.
Right.
That's all.
Well, in pigeonholing, that happens too.
If I'd like to introduce a concept. There's a guy named Dave Rendell who's on the East Coast. He's a professor, and he came up with a concept called the freak factor. And you can go to freakfactor.com and check it out. And we did a whole workshop at Anvil about it, and at Formic. And the concept is this: when I manage people, I'm realizing now I'm an entrepreneur, not a manager. You know, because I think there's visionaries, leaders, managers, and everybody else. And not you know, they're the ones that get shit done, and everybody else up here just pretends. So anyway, the freak factor is I want to make sure I degrade everybody equally. So equal opportunity insults. So my freak factor. So the key is you can take a quiz on freak factor. It's discovering your freak factor. In another strategic is called your unique ability. And the freak factor is that you've got a peak, and it's your expertise, and yours happens, you've defined it in a very interesting way. It's the broadness and the investigation, but that's still a unique ability freak factor. But what's interesting about it is that with every peak, there's a valley. So what I've typically done, my failure as a manager, is I manage to the valleys, not the peaks. So basically, it's also a first break all the rules. There's a lot of books about this, but it's when you manage to somebody's weakness, and you have them work on it. Peter Drucker said, when you have somebody work on their weakness, you end up with somebody with a really strong weakness. And so the point with Freak Factor is we now manage the team to their unique ability, their freak factor. And now we all know what our freak factors are, and it's I'm changing my role in the companies, and in the next couple months to be just solely focusing on my freak factor, getting out of day-to-day, getting out of sales, getting even out of marketing. Well, I can't totally get out of that, but I still love that. But the idea is that everybody should figure out what your freak factor is, and make sure that your boss, partners, employers, peers, constituents know what that is so that they can empower you, so you're not constantly trying to, we had one of our guys that's one of the worst public speakers, but a brilliant account strategist. He went to Toastmasters, he did all this stuff, and I realized, like, just cut it out. Like, just be a good account guy, earn the respect from and just don't speak. Let's not pretend that we can make you somebody or not, So I think that's something for you to all think about. So back to the resume is, there's to customize it, but your why should I care is because I'm like amazing at this. So I'm a musician. He's a lot of genius things, but I've tried to phone, like I'm a connector, I'm a problem solver, but that doesn't mean I should be a manager, that kind of thing. And being able to realize and transcend that.
Right. I mean, that's the whole finding your strength part of it, which is kind of like, I know, talk to death sometimes,
right.
But it really is true.
Basically what
Yeah, and I wanted to, well, maybe we could get a couple of,
Just-
because we're like running. So why don't we try to get a couple of closing thoughts from Justin and from Victor, and we can.
Just
yeah,
a
Victor
really
wants-
quick comment about labels, because this is like a very sensitive subject here. Okay, if you stick a label, be prepared to unstick it. I mean, that's really the only thing I could say. I mean, don't act on a label. I'm okay with it, but don't act on it. Cool, that's it.
Not necessarily related to labels, but just one thing I wanted to share is how many are you familiar with the term social enterprise, social entrepreneur? So, I mean, the concept is that, you can start a for-profit business that's solving something that, inspires you, a problem out there in the world. And I think, if you're interested in that topic, about how to create good through a business, that's a movement definitely check out. PSU has an incubator locally. And so some of the examples are, so everyone enjoys local food, organic farmers markets, but not everyone has access to that. There are neighborhoods in Portland that, for various reasons, are disadvantaged in the access to fresh produce. They may have a corner store, but it's prepackaged processed foods. So there's a business here in Portland, a startup, that's creating mobile produce farmers markets out of food trucks. We all love our food truck scene. They're going to hire people from that neighborhood so they know the right mix and the connections from a business development perspective. And they're working on funding. They're working on ways to make the numbers work because fundamentally, it has to be a sustainable, profitable business. But and there are many of these examples that are now bubbling up where really there's no real difference between a social entrepreneurship activity and a traditional business, except that they're being driven by a community need or an environmental need that they're wanting to help solve and make a profit out of it. And so that would be, if you're interested in that kind of topic, I would definitely recommend delving more into the resources and investors around town.
Okay, just to prove I can do it, ladies and gentlemen, Angela, Justin, Ken, and Victor, aren't they all awesome?
Thank you all so much. What a great discussion.
And we
this
wish we
turned out
had
to
more
be.
time. We wish we had,
did.
but they're here.
Can
and
you stick around
just
for
met
lunch
them
and visit
all,
with everybody? Great.
And
Great.
talk to them because they're brilliant. Thank you all.
Thank you all. All right. Wow.